Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today for the AAPEX webinar. We welcome you to the AAPEX Exhibitor Return on Investment webinar. Your hosts today are Arlene Davis from AAIA.
Hi, it's me.
There you go.
Hi, Marlene.
And myself, Chris Gardner with AASA. We'll introduce our speaker in just a minute, but a little housekeeping first. If everyone will please put your phones on mute, that will eliminate a lot of static and other background noises. Submit your questions at any time.
You want me to put my phone on mute too, Chris?
No, that would be everybody but you.
Okay,
Steve.
just want to make sure.
I'm glad to clarify that.
Yeah, it's want to make sure.
Type your questions in the little chat box that the GoToMeeting session provides. And
join 3870. But I will put together what is the selling price.
Hello.
That's Arlene talking.
38.
Arlene.
Okay, if everybody could put their phones on mute, that would be appreciated. Thank you very much. And as you type in your questions into the little chat box, Steve will review them, and as he gets to a certain point, when it makes sense, when he gets to a break, or possibly even at the end, if it makes sense, he'll answer the questions. I do want to mention, and we'll mention it again after our webinars, that we're going to hold a second free webinar next Tuesday, September 25th, 11 a.m., on what's new at AAPEX, and we'll talk about the improved and enhanced facilities and new sponsorship and promotional opportunities, new things that are happening on the show floor, what to expect when you get to Vegas, all these different things. And we're communicating that already through this two different associations mediums and through the Exhibitor newsletter. And so we hope that you and others from your company will join us next Tuesday. I do want to apologize for the mix-up in the times this morning, but we are straight. I think most everybody has logged on and registered. Next, if you have any questions about anything having to do with AAPEX, after this call next week, between now and the show, please contact either Arlene or myself or our show management firm, WT Glasgow. Phone number for Glasgow is 708-226-1300. That's 708-226-1300. So again, for those who are just joining us, welcome, and please put your phones on mute and use the little chat, the chat function, which should be in your dashboard on the right for your webinar. And then Steve will get to the questions when it makes sense and answer all your questions. So just a little bit of real quickly background. Everybody probably knows by now that AAPEX held a very successful exhibitor summit in June in Las Vegas. So we communicated and discussed a lot of strategic things then. We've also communicated through AAIA and AASA's different associations, mediums and newsletters and such. We also communicate with all of you through the AAPEX Exhibitor newsletter. And so let us know if you are not receiving that newsletter. But there are some more strategic areas we wanted to communicate, and these two webinars we're having today and next Tuesday are very effective ways to do that. So we're looking forward to today's session. Our guest speaker today is Steve Miller, who's a noted marketing expert. He's a trade show guru and an advisor to AAIA, AASA, and AAPEX. But everybody must understand, Steve has a medical condition, and it's called orange limitis.
Orange.
And that is Latin for a person who is so colorblind that the only color he can actually perceive is orange.
I'm autumnal.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Well, whatever. Something.
That's not Latin, though. But
no.
Anyway.
Well, I like that
anyway, Steve's going to talk to us today about how to approach AAPEX from an entire week's perspective, how to make sure your staff and your calendars and your messaging and your pre-event activities, your after-show hour activities all support those goals that you have for AAPEX. And he's got a lot to share with us. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so be sure and type those in. And with that, Steve, we thank you for joining us today, and the virtual floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. I don't know how many of you were able to attend the Exhibitor Summit. Maybe there are some people here that did participate with that. And if you did, well, that's awesome. We had a great time out in Las Vegas when we did that. And for those of you that weren't able to join us, well, welcome today. Like Chris was explaining to you, one of the big things about working a show like AAPEX from an exhibitor perspective, of course, is that you guys are spending a huge amount of money. It's all relative, of course. It's all relative to your company, but to your company, I am quite sure that you are investing a significant amount of money, a significant amount of time, a significant amount of energy in participating with us in Vegas very soon, and we want to try to do anything that we can to help you be more successful, and so that's why we're doing something like this webinar, and of course next week's webinar as well. I have to tell you that I just returned from Chicago, where I just spent a number of days, actually a 6-day trade show in Chicago. If you can imagine, a 6-day trade show, every day open for 9 hours every day. Boy, I'll tell you what, everybody was exhausted after that show was over. It was the International Manufacturing Technology Show, and it's in manufacturing. And the reason why I'm bringing it up here at the beginning is because quite often, people are going, well, how is the show going to be? What's AAPEX going to be like? Are we going to get attendees? Are people going to show up and stuff like that? Well, if another trade show would have any indication of potential success in November, I would say that this show, IMTS, was probably a good indicator because it represents the manufacturing community. That's what it represents. And they just blew the doors off last week as far as attendance at the show. The attendance was up over 30% over the previous show, which in manufacturing, which everybody's in manufacturing, this industry is involved in manufacturing. That is such a great indicator of the economy and the direction of the economy that everybody's very excited, and I am really, really looking forward to AAPEX being a big success. And boy, are we talking about, let me get back to this other one. We are only talking about AAPEX being 6 weeks away, and while Chris said, Steve's going to talk about all these different things, I only have about 45-50 minutes to try to help you get some more ideas, some more things that you can personally work on for your company that are going to make an impact on your results at AAPEX. Now, before I get into the actual how to do it, I want to give you a little, give you something that some great information, maybe some quizzical information here from last year's show. I'm going to share with you a few factoids that we learned from both exhibitors as well as attendees from last year, and you might find some of these very interesting. So, like, for example, last year, 2011, which was a really great show, we were asking the attendees, why do you attend AAPEX? What are the top reasons why you attend AAPEX? We gave them a whole bunch of different selections and options of why they might be attending AAPEX. Of course, we always left it. We also left it open so that people could submit their own reasons for attending AAPEX. And I said to them, okay, pick the top 3 that you would say are the top 3 reasons why you are attending AAPEX. And so they could answer more than one, of course, by answering 3. But here's how they responded. The number one answer for why they attend AAPEX, and this is important for you to understand, 70.7% of them said that the number one reason why they are coming to AAPEX is to see new products and industry trends. So, and why is that important to you? Well, it's because basically new. They're looking for new, and I really need to point this out to you. And is that it's so often that I will be walking through a trade show, and I might stop in somebody's booth and start chatting with them or something like that, and I'll say, and I'll say, hey, so what's new? What's new in here, right? Typical question that somebody's going to ask. And they'll say, oh, we got all kinds of new stuff in here. We got this product is new and that product is new. Something. And I'll say, well, where does it say that? You know, it doesn't say that this is new. And yet this is the number one reason why people are attending AAPEX. They're coming there to see what's new. And if you're not, and I know that you're going to bring new stuff to the show, and, you know, or new stuff since at least the last show. And, you know, if you're not showing these people that something is new, and if you're not telling them that something is new, as far as signage goes and things like that, well, then you're probably missing the boat, because that's what they're looking for. And yet very, very few exhibitors ever actually provide signage. So that's something to pay attention to, is when you have something new, make sure you shout it out. Now, that was the number one reason. Number two reason, get this, number two reason is to identify new suppliers. Look at that, 70.4%. Almost as many of them said that this was one of their most important reasons as they said just going to see what new products are. So they're looking for new suppliers. Now, why would they be looking for new suppliers? Well, they might be looking for new suppliers because either they're unhappy with their current suppliers, or they're looking to expand, you know, maybe what they're doing in their business, and they're looking for new types of suppliers that they've never worked with before. So those are the big two right there. See, and then we actually jump down to the third one, which is building relationships with current suppliers. Only 48.3% of them are saying that they're going to the show to build relationships with current suppliers. Now, that could be construed. We could look at that and we could say, well, the reason why they're, you know, it drops down significantly from the other one, the reason why is because, well, they already have a relationship with these people, so they're thinking to themselves, well, they don't really have to go see their current suppliers because they're already working with them. Well, let's think about that for a second, okay? I believe that the purpose of business is to create and maintain long-term customer relationships. Think about that for a second. The purpose of business is to create and maintain long-term customer relationships. Now, if I am going to an event like AAPEX, and, you know, I should be going there to basically do one of two things. I should be going there to create new relationships, and I should be going there to maintain current relationships. Not or. Don't go make the mistake of going there and saying, okay, I am just going there. My number one and only objective is to generate new leads, because you see, your relationship with your current customers, all right, your relationship with them, your current customers are new prospects to your competition. So it is really, really important for you to also use AAPEX as an opportunity to enhance your current relationship with customers, and make sure that a new supplier doesn't steal them away. Okay, that's really, really important. And see, you know, right here, by saying that only 48.3% of them said that this was important, okay, as compared to 70% saying that they're out there to find new suppliers, that also tells me that their suppliers aren't making this, you know, a priority to them. So make sure that you make that a priority as well. And they're going there to purchase, okay? You know, we know that they're writing orders at the show, absolutely, but it still drops down to 40.9%. It's still significant, so they are going there to write orders. And then finally, the fifth one, if we drop down now into the next one that might have any type of impact, is that they're there to network. Okay, 25.2% of them are there to network. But you see, you want to pay attention to this stuff because this is why they are coming to the show. So you want to know that, and you want to take advantage of that, so that you are joining the conversation that's going on in their mind while they are attending AAPEX. Now, another thing that I think is significant to understand is how many total hours the attendees are spending on the show floor. And last year, they told us that they spent on average 10.24 total hours on the floor at AAPEX during the entire show. Now, that is important to know. And the reason why it's important to know is because it gives you an idea of the fact that they have a limited amount of time on the show floor. And so during 10.24 hours, they can't talk to 2,000 exhibitors that are at the show. They can only talk to a limited number of exhibitors. And then when you add on to that, the next question, how long was your average meeting with an exhibitor? And they told us that their average meeting was about 11 minutes. Now, both of these numbers are significant for two additional reasons. Number one, to say that they're on the show floor for 10.24 hours, that is actually higher than the national average. You might be thinking, gee, that's really not that much time. But in fact, the national average is only 8.2 hours that the average attendee spends on the show floor. So this is significantly higher. You know, the 10.24 hours is significantly higher than the national average. On the flip side, they're saying here that they're going to spend an average of 11 minutes with each exhibitor. Most exhibitors think that they really don't have much time to talk to these people. When I ask exhibitors how much time they think they could spend with people on the show floor, they usually will say, 3, 5 minutes, 3, 4, or 5 minutes with an attendee on the show floor. The attendees actually think in terms of longer time, longer conversations. And essentially what they're saying to us is, if you give me a reason to talk to you, I will give you the time. I will give you a portion of my 10.24 hours. And so you want to think about that. You want to think about that when you go into a conversation with an attendee, that don't go into it thinking it's just a hit and run. You want to go into it with the idea that you are having a quality conversation with an attendee, and that's what we're looking for at the show. We're looking for quality conversations with quality attendees. That's who we're looking for. Right now, let's get into something that might be a little more. I don't want to use the word controversial, but let's just say that we have and I might be wrong about this. I think the word is dichotomy. I don't know. Anyway, let's say, how many exhibitors contacted you to invite you to their exhibit? This is what the attendees are telling me now, all right? The attendees are saying that they received on average 7.5 invitations before the show. And that was, that's how many exhibitors contacted them before the show. Now, I also asked exhibitors, how many attendees did you contact before the show? Their response, 41.4. Okay, these numbers don't jive, do they? I got exhibitors telling me that they're out there inviting over 40 people to the show, while I got attendees saying that they're only getting invitations from 7.5 exhibitors. What is the story with that? All right, that's a question mark, and I'm going to address that here in just a second when I talk about what you need to be doing before the show starts. So, like I said, if you keep that stuff in mind so that you understand kind of where the attendees are coming from. What did they think last year? How much time are they spending on the show floor? What are they doing there? Why are they there? Think about that stuff and incorporate it into your own plans for the show. I know I know most of you. You are deep into your planning and implementation for the show and stuff like that. So you're looking for things here to tweak, and you want to pay attention to what the attendees are saying. So, like I said, we are 6 weeks away from the show, and what can we do? What can we do to impact the ROI that we want to get out of the show? And this is the number one question that I get from exhibitors around the world. Number one question, and it goes on and on and on, and that is all about, okay, how do I measure ROI? How do I do that? I mean, it's one thing to go to a show where everybody's writing orders. I mean, if all the attendees are coming to the show and everybody's writing orders, then it's pretty simple for us to be able to measure ROI there. But if based on what we got from last year, 40% of them are saying that they're to write orders. So not everybody is writing orders. We're still seeing quite a few, but that means that 60% of them are saying, no, you know what? I'm not there to write orders. I am there to gather information. I'm there to see what's new. I'm there to interview new potential suppliers. That's what I'm there to do. And so you say, okay, well, but how do I measure ROI from that? Well, you see, the question is actually backwards. Where attendees tend to think in terms of, exhibitors tend to think in terms of they plan for the show. They basically do what they've done in the past. Maybe they might try to do what they've done in the past, maybe a little better, or something, where they're just approaching the show basically the same way they've done in the past, and then afterwards they're going, how do I measure ROI? No, you see, that's kind of the backwards things to do. And let me show you what I'm talking about. And see, we're doing a little tricky stuff here, on the webinar. This is advanced webinar stuff. Okay, so let's think about ROI. Well, ROI is when you are thinking about your company at the beginning of its fiscal new year, you don't sit there and say, everybody doesn't gather around the table and say, well, see, let's start planning for 2013. What are our objectives for next year? And the objectives, and we say something like, well, it's to get as many sales as possible. Oh, well, let's get to, like let's say it's to, like I say, sales. Oops, I got a button going on here that I shouldn't be doing. Sales. And then somebody else says, well, no, we should be generating leads and prospects and people like that. And others are saying, well, no, we want to get more more market share. Okay, that's what we want to do. We want to get more market share. I'm not printing that very well, am I? And why is that not right? Come on. See, I'm trying something new with you guys, and it should be working fine. Oh, I get it. I'm writing too fast. Okay, so market share. What else? And then you get into other things, like people will say, well, we want to build our brand. Okay, and these are all well and good, but really, when it gets right down to it, at the beginning of our fiscal new year, what we first want to do, what we sit down and we say, okay, actually, what we're going to do is we want to generate sales. Our number one priority is to generate sales. And so we're going to set a dollar figure for the year. We might say, well, this year we're going to, do $10 million in sales, and so now everything that we do is designed around getting that $10 million in sales. Well, the same type of thing has to work for us when it comes to trade shows. See, instead of going to AAPEX and then afterwards trying to figure out how do you measure your success, the same thing applies there. You say, okay, what do we want to get out of AAPEX that is measurable in a way that will ultimately impact the numbers that we want to get for our company for the year. So the thing that I often do with my clients is I will say, okay, what are your objectives for the entire year? And so, like, let's say, for example, somebody says to me, well, our objectives are, $10 million. That's our objectives. And I'll say, okay, what does your average customer spend with you? And they say, oh, well, my average customer spends, we'll say $50,000, a year with us. And we say, okay, your average customer spends $50,000 a year. Well, in order to get $10 million, that means I've got to find, 200? Is that right? I don't know. I majored in electives. Is that 200 or is it 2,000? I'm going to say 200. If I'm wrong, go ahead and write it in the questions. But or Chris, do you have a computer there? A calculator there? I'm just guesstimating that. So we'll say 200. Okay. So now I'm going to say, all right. So 200. All right. That's how many customers I have to have who are going to spend the $50,000 with me. Now, in order for me to get 200 customers, well, I'm going to, let's just say that this year I've got, out of those 200, I'm going to have current relationships, and I'm just making these numbers up as I go here. Okay. I'm going to say, okay, I've got, 150 customers that I think are going to be on the books for next year, and they're going to spend that average of 50. So now I'm looking for 50 new customers. Okay, so now I'm going to say, all right, how do I use AAPEX to do this? Well, okay, at AAPEX, I am going to try to find people who are ultimately going to be either new customers or they're my current customers. See? And by doing that, I now approach AAPEX from a different perspective. I don't go to AAPEX the same exact way I've gone in the past. And the typical company in the past, the typical company that goes to a show like AAPEX simply goes with the idea of saying, okay, we're going to pack as many people in our booth as possible, and we're going to have as many conversations with people as possible, and we hope that ultimately somebody will turn into sales later on. We're not really sure if we're going to be able to measure that or not. So instead, here's how I would suggest that we look at this. And Chris, are you still on?
Sure am.
Okay. One thing I forgot to look up that I need you to tell me is how many hours is AAPEX open? How many show hours?
24.
24?
Yeah, that's right.
24. Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at it this way. Let's say that the show is open for 24 hours. Okay. Now let's say that you're going to have, let's say you have 6 people working in your booth at any one time. All right. So we know that this is how many hours the show is open. All right. And we got 6 people. So that means that we've got a total of 144 total hours of staff hours at the show. Now, how many conversations can you have in 144 hours? How many conversations can each one of your staffers have on average during the show? Somebody's talking in the background. I need you to mute your phone, please.
Only people on my cube are gone, so...
Hello? Somebody's talking in the background. I need you to mute your phone. So okay, so I've got 144 staff hours at the show. Now, how many quality conversations do you think that your staffers can average each hour during the show? Now, remember, the attendees said that their average conversation was roughly about 11 minutes, all right? So, if we think in terms of, well, how many exhibitors are they really going to be able to visit each hour during the show, between walking time, between, running into a friend, between, yes, they will have those very short hit and runs. But if they average, say 11 minutes, I'll round it to 10, conversations. Can they have 2? Can they have 3? I mean, your staffers, we have to kind of think in the same way. Is how many total quality conversations can they have during the show? And I'm going to really give this exhibitor the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that they're going to have 3 conversations each hour, 3 quality conversations on average. That's a lot. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lot. But if we multiply this, all right, so that is, what is that? See, that is, am I doing this right? See, 12, and then there's 13, and then there's carry that over. So 432 total conversations at the show. So we could say that this is our number one objective for the show, and these are the leads. If you're going there to gather leads for the show, then your objective would be to say, I'm going to go there to get 432 leads, because then after I get those leads, then based on those conversations, I'm going to say that I'm going to close, let's say I'm going to close 20% of those people that I talked to at the show. So roughly we'll say 86 new customers on average at the show. Now take a look at that. If we have 86 new customers and our average customer is spending $50,000 a year, well, guess what? We've just, blown the doors off of our objectives for this year. I only needed 50 new customers, but in this case I got 86. This is how you measure your success at the show. Is you got to go back and you got to take a look. You got to say, all right, if I'm going to the show to gather leads, this is how many leads. I'm looking for 432 leads because I've got 6 guys, six people working in the booth, and this is how many they're going to talk to every hour during the show. So the things that you have impact over are, let's see, I'm going to change, let's see if I can change a color here, so I can point this out a little better. I'm going to pick, let's pick blue.
Okay. Excuse me, Steve, if everybody can be sure and put their phones on mute, that would be helpful, and we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. So, mute, please. Because it's distracting. All right, so we go to the show. Now, this is the reason why I'm spending time on this is because this is really, really important, and this impacts how you approach the show. And between now and then, our objective Our objective is to try to impact this number. That's what our objective is. We want to try to impact this number before the show, and then what we're doing at the show that will help make a difference. So what I'm going to look at is what can I do before the show to invite people into my booth so that I get, that's a bad arrow, so that I get 432 people to come to our booth or more, right? And that they're quality contacts, and if I do a really, really good job, then will I close 20%? Probably close more, right? It'll go higher than that. So, really, that's what this is all about, is how do I now go to the show. Whoops, where am I going? Let's go back here. So now how do I go to the show and get that ROI? How do I now go to the show and get my 432 leads? For some of us, in fact, for a lot of us, we're not going to get 432 leads. That's way too many. We're smaller. We're not going to have 6 people working in the booth. We're not going to generate three leads per hour. But if you only have 2 people working in the booth and they're getting 2 leads per hour, well, you'll still know how many you can expect to get at the show. And now your behavior and your approach to the show changes. And you have to look at, okay, how do we now hit those numbers? So, whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to go back to here. All right, so let's talk about our pre-show thinking for the next 6 weeks. Now let's do it this way, all right? Number one, the first thing I want you to think about is think quality, not quantity. Unfortunately, exhibitors tend to think in terms of quantity going into a show. They hear numbers like, like I say, last week at IMTS there were 100,000 people at IMTS, and but did the exhibitors have 100,000 prospects? Of course not. It was only a small percentage of those that were their prospects at the show. And in this case, we don't want I don't want everybody in my booth. I just want the right people in my booth. So to me, when I'm approaching, if I'm looking 6 weeks out, I'm saying to myself, I would much rather, go after 100 smoking hot leads rather than try to collect 1,000 names, and I call them suspects. And exhibitors tend to do things in their booths that are more busy than they are effective. In other words, they'll have drawings and they'll have contests and they'll get, they'll have giveaways, and they'll talk about, they'll be handing out brochures, and they'll say, oh, enter, throw your business card in here, and and let me just scan your badge real quick. And they think that they're gathering leads. They are not gathering leads. They're just gathering suspects. And it would be much better for me to try to find 100 smoking hot leads, or use that formula, come up with your own number, than it is for me to just try to collect names. So the number one thing going into the show is to very clearly, identify the objective that you have for the show, and then number 2 is, who are your prospects? You need to identify who the people are that you want to talk to at the show. Now, don't, to say to me it's intuitive, well, okay, fine, it's intuitive. But you know what? The really best marketers on the planet sit down and they write out on paper who their ideal prospect is. What are the qualifications of an ideal prospect? Who are the people that you actually want to talk to at the show? I mean, think about it in terms of your current customer base. And if we think in like the 80-20 rule, for example, and you say, okay, 80% of our revenues are generated by 20% of our customers. All right, the 80-20 rule probably is pretty accurate for your company. Is somewhere around there. At the same time, only 20% of our revenues are generated by 80% of our prospects. And you know what, the 80-20 rule also works in the way of saying, 80% of our headaches come from 20% of our prospects, and vice versa. So, see, if I'm going to identify my quality prospect, the person I want to talk to at the show, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think, okay, I'm actually looking for more of those 20%, of my customers who represent the 80% of my revenues. Who are those people? Who, where are they? What is the size of their business? What types of problems? What types of challenges? What types of issues do they have that I can help with? What can I do to help them be more successful? And how do I get more of those people? So who are your prospects at the show? I mean, I think that I think that they say that there's 50,000 people walking through the show. And that's true, but you don't have 50,000 prospects. You have a small percentage of that. So you want to identify who those people are ahead of time so you can contact them and invite them to your booth, and then while you're at the show, your staffers are looking for the people who fit the profile of your targeted market. Now, when you are talking to these people, as you're developing your signage, as you're developing your communications, and I assume that you're getting ready to do these, if you're not already in pre-show communication mode, well, you need to get in it pretty quick. You want to be contacting these top prospects, these top leads, ahead of time, and getting them to commit to come and see you at the show. Now, when you are doing this, think like a prospect. Don't think like a marketer. In fact, I think the worst thing that anybody can do is think like a marketer, because marketers tend to think in talking to people. They tend to think in terms of telling their story rather than helping prospects and customers fix problems. We want to join the conversation in the prospect's mind and help them be more successful. So in your planning, everything walks the talk. Everything must link to your objectives. And in your planning, do not copy what somebody else is doing. Don't say, oh, last year I saw so-and-so do this at the show. I saw them have they did this type of mailing. Let's do that type of mailing. Oh, let's do, somebody had, a golf contest going on in their booth. Let's do a golf contest this year in our booth. Okay, don't copy, because when you copy, then all you're doing is following what somebody else did, and it becomes second rate. So you want to start out by asking yourself, what types of pre-show communications should you have between now and the show, so that you can get people to come in and see you at the show? And in fact, one of my goals always as an exhibitor was to ensure the success of my show before I went to the show. So, for example, going back to that initial formula I had, where I had 432 leads was what my for that company. Very, very aggressive, but we'll use that number. We'll say 432 leads that I wanted to generate at the show. Well, my objective would be to try to get as many appointments and commitments from attendees before the show as possible to come in and see me. And if I can do that, if I could get 100, 200 of them to say, yeah, I'll come in and talk to you at the show, well, I'm halfway to my goal. So I try to ensure the success of my show before I go there. And I want to stress right out of the box, okay, don't depend on email to be your primary or your only method of communicating with attendees ahead of time. Now, here's why this is important. Let's go back and remember, the big question mark was when I asked attendees last year, how many invitations do you get before the show? And they said that they remembered getting 7.5 communications before the show. Yet the exhibitors said that they sent out an average of 41.4 invitations before the show. Here's what's happened. I'm pretty sure the exhibitors are sending emails. That's what they're doing. they're sending emails to the people because, and you want to know why? Because it's easy, it's cheap, it's fast. Well, cheap, it's free. It's fast. The exhibitors are just popping this stuff out, and they're going, oh, they're patting themselves on the back, and they're going, oh, I did an email campaign, I sent out an email blast to, thousands of people. Boy, they're just going to come flocking to see me at the show. No, come on. See, that's thinking like a marketer. That's not thinking like a prospect. Put your prospect hat on. You have to ask yourself, what is happening when you open your email? Okay? When you open your email, you've got spam filters. How often do we go through our spam filters? We do occasionally, but not that often. We go into our email box and we start to look and see who are the emails from. That's the first thing we do. We look and see who the emails are from. If it's from somebody we know, then we might open it. I mean, the odds are we do open it to see what they have to say. If it's from somebody we don't know, then we will give a quick glance to the subject line, and if the subject line is not appealing, if it's not joining the conversation in my mind, I delete the email, and so do you. So that's why, see, exhibitors think that they're sending out emails. They think they're communicating with the attendees out there, and the attendees are going, well, either I never even saw it, or I didn't pay attention to it, or it wasn't important to me. So you have to be careful. Don't depend on email. I don't have a problem with sending emails, obviously, to people that you know. If you have a relationship with people and it's a good relationship, and they know you, then they will read the email. But make sure your email is also personal communication. But on top of email, besides email, we have to separate ourselves from the crowd. Everybody's sending email. Everybody is sending email, and everybody's depending on email as their number one, primary, and in most cases, only method of communicating with attendees ahead of time. Well, guess what? If you want to separate yourself from the crowd, you're going to look for other ways to communicate. The number one best way of all is direct mail. Now, direct mail encompasses a number of different ways. The single best thing that you can do outside of a personal visit with somebody, actually going to them, meeting them face to face and saying, hey, come and see us at AAPEX, the next best thing you can do is to write them a personal letter. Now, when I say a personal letter, I'm talking about a letter that is addressed, Dear Chris, okay, and it's got Chris's name on the front. It's typed on the front, and it's got a first-class stamp in the corner. It doesn't have a label. It doesn't say Dear, AAPEX attendee or something like that. It's not just some, computer-generated letter. It is an actual personal letter. And in your direct mail piece, in any communication, you are giving them a business reason to come and see you. A business reason. Because remember, they're only going to have 10.24 hours on the show floor. They only have a limited amount of time. They have to decide to go to see the people who are going to impact their business. That's why they're coming to Las Vegas. They're coming there to build their business. So in your pre-show communications, you need to communicate to them a business reason. What are you going to do at AAPEX that's going to help them build their business? Personal letters are the best way to do it. I love sending greeting cards out because when you send direct mail, well, like email, for example, what is the single most difficult thing to do when you send an email to people? Is to get them to read it, right? Well, that's fine, but actually, they won't read it if they don't open it, okay? Same thing to do with direct mail. They don't read it if they don't open it. Hey, the same thing happens in your booth. If they don't stop in your booth, nothing happens. So the whole objective is to get that first step, right? So with direct mail, I prefer to send a personal letter. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say this. In the personal letter, I would make it fat. Make it a fat mailing. In other words, stick something in the letter so it's a personal letter to them, but there's something inside there. It's like the Cracker Jack box. They gotta see what's inside, because the single most important thing is to get them to open it first. If they don't open it, they don't read it. People do open greeting cards. We don't get that many greeting cards, in the mail. So people do open greeting cards. I love sending greeting cards as invitations for the show because it gets a lot of readership, and if I put the right message in there, then it does get a lot of response. And of course, there's direct response marketing itself, or direct response mail itself, where whether you're developing some type of direct response campaign, a multi-part campaign. In fact, I always encourage that in pre-show that you have more than one communication with people ahead of time. Don't just rely on one, especially email. Don't rely on one email, one personal letter, one card, one direct response. Make it a series. Make it a campaign I'm always looking at a minimum of a 3-part campaign where I will send a personal letter, I will send a greeting card, and then I might even send, a postcard. I might send, a fax to them if I have their fax number. I might do that. So I have a 3-part communication with them, hoping they'll read all 3. Certainly hoping that they read at least one and see that it's something that they are going to be interested in, and so then they will jump on the bandwagon and come in and see me at the show. Now, one that a lot of people don't pay attention to, they don't think about, is voicemail. Now, when we call people, you notice I didn't say, call them on the phone. I said, face-to-face or personal letter. Well, calling them on the phone works well too, but we go into it understanding that we're going to hit voicemail. We know that. We all hide behind voicemail, and we very, very rarely ever answer our phone these days. And if you do, good for you, because you're separating yourself from the crowd. But voicemail. So the way you prepare for voicemail is you have a little script. And the script is something along the lines of, hey Chris, this is Steve Miller, calling from ABC Widget, company, and I know that you're going to be attending AAPEX this year. I really want you to come by and see us at booth number blah blah blah. I'm sorry. And here's why I think it's important for you to come in and see me. Here's a really, really good business reason. And so we're in booth. We're in booth so and so. This is our company name. If you want to contact me, here's my phone number, here's my email address, and I hope to see you at the show. So you are leaving a very detailed but very, very quick voicemail. And it's not just, hi Chris, this is Steve Miller, at ABC, just wanted to touch base with you and, see if you're going to be at AAPEX. So if you get a chance to call me back. See, that's the typical voicemail we leave. No, you leave a voicemail that you planned on. It's like leaving a little, it's an ad, a good marketing piece. If you're going to do trade ads, and a lot of companies do trade ads, nothing wrong with that, except make the trade ad about the show. Your objective is to get people to come in and see you at the show. So you want to make sure that the ad is doing just that. Don't just do an ad that's some type of, and if you say, we're building awareness and we've got the booth number down at the bottom, I've never cashed a check on awareness. I only am interested in response-driven media, in response-driven messages where I am being very specific. Hey, you're going to be at AAPEX. We're going to be at AAPEX. This is, if you've got this problem, if you've got this issue, if you're looking for this type of product, if this is what you're looking for to increase your, sales, increase your revenues, increase your business, we've got the answer for you. Here's our booth number. Be sure to come and see us. And so you're being very, very specific about what you want these people to do at the show. So, at the show, thinking about preparing for being at the show, I want you to think about giveaways and literature. I made the comment earlier, that if we use this for just building traffic, then we're making a huge mistake. I don't like giveaways and literature as far as just handing the stuff out willy-nilly. You can use it as a gift for at the end of a conversation, but in my preference is that I don't really have giveaways for just giving stuff away, and I definitely don't like giving literature away to everybody who asks for it. I use this stuff as post-show communications. If somebody asks for literature, I tell them I'll send it to you because I don't want it to go into the bag with everybody else's literature. I will send you my literature, and then I'll use my giveaways as a fat mail to follow up with them afterwards. So again, people tend to use giveaways and literature, to be busy. Same thing with in-booth promotions. Make sure that your in-booth promotions, anything that you're doing, is there to is there to get traffic in your booth who are important to you. Not just everybody in your booth, but just the people who are important to you. You don't want to have any type of invitation in there that anybody can take you up on. Just make sure that you are talking to the people who are, important to you. Same thing with hospitality suites. These things, people have hospitality suites, and you know what? You know what it actually ends up being? It's just food fights. Who has the best food? Who had the biggest prawns? Who had the best liquor? And stuff like that. And it turns into, it's not used for true business. You want to. Everything walks the talk, like I said before. You want to use your hospitality suites, and just get the people in your booth that you want to talk to. Don't try to pack them with all your friends and family and other exhibitors, things like that. You want to make them business. Don't just get into a big food fight with everybody. And the same thing with dinners and shows. Is take advantage of Vegas to go out with your clients, with your customers, with your prospects. It's great to be able to do that, to take them out. But again, but don't just make it. In fact, what I would say is make sure that every dinner that you have is with a customer or a prospect. And if you're going to go to a show, make sure you're taking a customer or prospect. Use every minute that you are in Las Vegas to build your business and achieve the objectives that you've got for the show. So when you're and staffers, I do want to mention staffers before I get into the questions. But the thing about staffers is make sure the staffers understand why they are there. Make sure they understand that their responsibility is to help you hit the objectives that you set for the show. If you're sitting down and you're saying, our staffers can average, 2 quality conversations per hour, well, sit down with them and say, do you think you can do two conversations per hour? Do you think you can identify these people? And, work on it together. Make sure they understand that they have a job to do at the show, and that is to help you achieve your objectives for the show. Understanding the products is all well and good, but you know what? Staffers have to be aggressive. They have to be trying to start conversations as often as possible. They can't just sit there and wait for attendees to come into the booth and chat with you. They are there to work. And you know what? If your staffers do a great job at the show, they're going to need a vacation after the show is over with. So remember, again, we go back to that. Hello. I can hear you talk. Hang up on the. Okay. Anyway, the final thing I want to remind you is that every one of your communications, everything that you're doing at the show, everything you're doing pre-show, everything like that, it's not about you. Don't just send stuff out that says, we are such and such a company. We're ABC Widget Company. We've been in business for 5,000 years, and this is our 13th time at AAPEX, and we're proud to be there. And be sure to stop by and see it. No, it's not about you. It's about the prospect. It's about the attendee. It's about the person that you want to talk to at the show, and so you want to talk to them from their perspective. Here's why you should come to see us. If you have this problem, if you have this issue, if you have this objective, here we have the answer for you. Come see us at AAPEX. So I just tried to touch on a whole bunch of stuff during this brief webinar here today. Remember, for those of you that haven't seen this yet, and I don't have this up, I'm going to send an email. I'll send an email blast out again this week with the cool tips, reminding you that that I have set up an Exhibitor telesummit that covers like 9 different topics that you can go in and get more detailed information on some of the things that I talked about here, but again, going into much more detail on each one of them. And so watch your email. It'll either be today or tomorrow that says cool tip for AAPEX. Watch that, because I'm going to put a link in there that you can go in, complimentary, free from AAPEX and me, that gives you lots more information about exhibiting at the show. So, okay, I got a few minutes left before we wrap this thing up. Let's see. Do we have any questions? If you have any questions, just pop them in there, asking me, or any questions regarding AAPEX that we can let Chris or Arlene answer for us. No questions yet. I know one question sometimes people will ask me while we're waiting here. One question people will ask me is, they'll say, well, regarding staffers, for example, they'll say, well, what should staffers wear? Should they be in a suit and tie, golf shirt? What should they be in? And really, my answer is that the thing the staffers should be is they should be congruent with the branding of your company. They should be congruent with the personality of your company. But most important of all, if I'm an attendee, I should be able to find the staffers in your booth easily. I should be able to visually tell who's working in your booth. So, and for some companies, that means you're all going to have golf shirts that are the same. That's fine. Everybody has orange golf shirts. Or some companies, everybody, they say, well, no, we're a conservative company. We want everybody to be in, coats and ties, and that's fine. Everybody can be wearing orange ties, right? I was working with Coca-Cola at an event a few years ago, and they had everybody wearing big red chrysanthemums on their lapels, and so we could find them very, very easily. That's the main thing, that people want to ask. So, well, I don't see any other questions or any questions. I thought must have covered some stuff. Okay. Remember that you can contact me. Let's see. Let me make sure. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I'll move my control panel over. You can contact me right there, steve@theadventure.com. If you've got any questions, feel free to fire them off to me. I'm happy to answer them for you. That's my blog, twohatmarketing.com, if you want more marketing tips and ideas. And that's my daughter Kelly playing golf at Portland State. She's at a tournament today, so I got to go get on the internet and find out what they're doing out there. And with that, I've got about 3 minutes left before 9. So, Arlene, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Wade, that was wonderful.
Take it away.
I think a lot of great information, and let's hope everybody is going to take advantage of it. I think there is still time to do something and to get prepared for AAPEX. And Steve, great job.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank everybody for participating today, and just remind you that there's a few things for our exhibitors to do. Please update your directory listings. Just so you know, this year we're searching, our attendees are going to have the opportunity to search by brand. They've been asking for that, and we're giving it to them this year, so make sure, you as exhibitors, this is a way for buyers to find you. Get your brands in there. Make sure that your directory listings are updated. They appear not only on our website, they will also appear on the kiosks, on the show floor, as well as in our apps. So if you haven't downloaded the app, do so today. Go to the Apple Store and download the ones that for your Apple phone or the Droid. We also have one for Droid. And if you're still using the BlackBerry, we do have a app available, and you can download that from our website, AAPEXshow.com. So, and while you're there on the website, you might take a look to see what other deadlines are coming up. And we do hope that we'll see you next week on Tuesday. The webinar will be about what's new at AAPEX. We're going to cover the Sam's Construction, go over some of the new opportunities that are available for exhibitors for promoting their brand, as well as cover just some administrative stuff. If you don't know how to do the directory listing, we're going to go through that as well, and some other key things. Make sure you've done your housing, and don't forget, restaurants. Key thing, you're taking your buyers out, make your reservations early. So, Chris and I thank you, AIA and ASA thank you for participating, and we look forward to seeing you very soon in Las Vegas.
Bye.
Thanks.